Hi, guys. Welcome to the Gig Economy Podcast. A little bit different episode today. Steve from Rideshare Rodeo did an episode, and we did an episode, and we're swapping. So today you're going to hear Steve from the Rideshare Rodeo. Why are we swapping? Well, this is a great way to build each other's audience. You get a little picture of what Steve does. You already know what we do. So go download his show, obviously on every podcast platform in the world. And of course, ridesharerodeo.com. Steve and I met on Twitter, 5-6 years ago, became friends, have never met in person, but have been guest hosts on each other's shows over the years. I helped him start his podcast. He's helped me with a ton of other stuff. So we're just all around good pals, and I can't wait to meet him. I don't think we're going to be at the podcast conference for the meetup, but at some point I'm going to get out and to meet Steve because he's just amazing. So check out his show, ridesharerodeo.com. He's going to talk about himself a little bit when the episode starts, so you'll get to know him a little bit. And just download his show, like his YouTube page, subscribe to his YouTube page, all that fun stuff. I think you'll enjoy it. Steve gets down and dirty with the nuts and bolts of the gig economy and just has so much knowledge of the laws and independent contractor, and gets incredible people that are just amazingly smart on his show. So I really, really want you to check it out. Go to ridesharerodeo.com or search Rideshare Rodeo on any of the podcast platforms. All right, guys, enjoy the show.
Welcome to the... Wait a minute, you guys. So this is going to get a little bit interesting here. If you are hearing this audio podcast, it might be a little confusing to you because you are listening to the Gig Economy Podcast. And you're wondering, who is this guy? And why is he running his podcast on one I listen to weekly? This week, my friends at the Gig Economy Podcast and I have decided to do a podcast swap. On the Rideshare Rodeo Podcast, you are hearing this week's Gig Economy Podcast. Here on the Gig Economy Podcast, you are hearing this week's Rideshare Rodeo Podcast. Why are we doing this? To confuse you? To upset you? No. We decided it was a great way to expose both audiences to both podcasts. As Jason says, if you want the nuts and bolts of the gig economy, check out the Rideshare Rodeo. And if you want funny stories and fart jokes, listen to the Gig Economy Podcast. Now, I need to clarify something here. While my podcast, Rideshare Rodeo, does focus on many aspects of the gig economy, in fact, all of them, and all of the surrounding apps and everything, and a lot of nuts and bolts, yes. At the same time, I want to fix Jason's comment a little bit because he makes it sound too much of a joke on their podcast. And Jason and Jesper, yes, they love the back and forth and comedy. I love that too. At the same time, though, these guys have been doing a podcast on the gig economy for almost as long as my website has been up. So longer than all of my socials, Rideshare Rodeo, longer than my audio podcast. These guys have been there doing this, and I'm in now my 7th year of the website, and I believe they're in their 6th year of their audio podcast. But enough about the history between us. There's a lot of it, and we could unpack that for a long time. But instead, welcome everyone to the Rideshare Rodeo Podcast, covering everything gig economy related. I'm your host, SJ. Let's get it on.
Steve laid up ahead, slowing down and making no time. I gotta keep it rolling. Those are windshield wipers slapping out the tempo, breaking from the rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling. I'm driving my life away, looking for a better way.
Normally, guys, this is where I say, let's get into it, and we just jump right in. But let me give you guys just a little bit of history on me. I live in the Denver, Colorado market. This is the Rideshare Rodeo Podcast. You can find ridesharerodeo.com. You can find all the news. You can find us on all social medias, YouTube, and all. You can go to the website and find everything. But also you can find us on every pod player. Rideshare Rodeo. I've been doing in the Denver market rideshare since 2015, and right before the pandemic, I started tailoring back, and this is before the pandemic. It wasn't the pandemic that called it, but I was tailoring back my rideshare work. And I've always juggled that between real independent contractorship, and by that I'm not dismissing independent contractorship in the gig realm. What I'm saying is a more traditional look at it. So I have been a production laser certified, staging, lighting, sound. I've basically done all the jobs on world tours to accommodate performers and corporate events and cruise lines and everything. So I've done a lot of production background, and that's my traditional IC work. My app-based platform work, the app gigs that I started was in 2015, Uber, Lyft, still doing some bartending at the time, and eventually got into the pandemic. And since the pandemic, I've kind of been getting more unique. And yes, of course, I have tried all of the food apps. Yes, I have tried all of the shopping apps. I've got them all under my belt. I've got an understanding of them all. I also am a member of With Para, or the Para team. If you guys remember the Para app for tip transparency, it does a lot more than that now. And the actual department I work with is Para Works, bringing catering orders, at this time, catering orders to everybody in the United States. Download Para and connect any one of your accounts and plug in the Para Works, or hit that you're interested in Para Works, and you will walk through a couple steps and start receiving some catering offers. But I do a lot of curry. That is my primary app. I love the last mile delivery space. And by that, I'm not referring to food. I'm referring to courier apps. And that can even mean Amazon Flex and Roadie and whatnot. But I am a big fan of curry. It is great in my market. I've been doing it for just about 2 years now. And I just hit my 1-year anniversary of doing dumpling. So I'm going to go through some news like I always do on my podcast. But then if we have a little time at the end, let me see if I have enough time to squeeze in a little bit of curry and dumpling talk, in case you guys don't often hear that on the Gig Economy podcast. But, maybe Jason will have me on as a guest sometime. We can talk about that soon. Okay, so I always try and start off with the big story, right? And there's a few big stories right now. And actually, I am cutting this podcast after the Gig Economy podcast cut the one that's airing on my podcast channel. And the reason that I'm making comment to this is because they recorded on Wednesday, and on Thursday things changed in regards to Minnesota. We'll go to Minnesota in a second, because if I have to take my most important story, it's going to be Uber launching Uber Teen. And no, it might sound like it, but it is not a gum. It is not mouthwash. It's exactly what it sounds like. Uber Teen. So Uber is allowing parents to create sub-accounts under their accounts, but in their children's names. So if the kids are 13 to 17 years old, which has never been allowed on the Uber platform. Let's remember, guys, that since day one, in 2009, when Travis Kalanick launched this company, there has always, through all of its changes, there has always been a no unsupervised minors in the car. No unaccompanied minors. That has been there since day one. Every single other rule has gone out the window and then boomeranged back, and they re-implement it, and this and that, and the boys culture and Phantom and all these things, and stealing secrets from Alphabet, Waymo, and taking them over to Uber, and the guy not going to jail, and now re-teaming up. I mean, they've been through everything and everything. But one thing that has never changed is no unaccompanied minors. Now, yes, what is Uber? Uber is a SaaS platform. It can try and pretend like it's technology. It's been back and forth with this a few times. But the reality is Uber a technology company? In my book, absolutely not. They don't produce any real technology. And if you notice and follow their symmetry and patterns, what they do is they acquire things like Uber Autonomous, or they had purchased a VTOL company, vertical takeoff and landing, flying cars. They're into so many spaces that, yes, there are companies out there doing this stuff. But if you were to rank the top 100 world companies in any of the sectors I just spoke of, Uber wouldn't even be in those top 100. So I feel like it's more of a money grab. And if you look at the timing of it, it's usually based on their quarterly earnings reports. So it's I don't want to say they've never made money, but they've never made money. We know this. I'm not even going to pick on Lyft yet. But what I am going to say is Uber's never made a profit. Now, we've been through this many times. Does that mean the people at Uber and the original venture capitalists have not been paid out? Well, there were some people who were paid out immediately, sold their shares. There were some people who had to hold their shares for a certain amount of years. Do I still think that those people are being paid something somehow? Yes, I do. Do I know how it's being done? No, I don't. But I honestly believe, not everybody, but I believe there are levels of people. And if you came in the very beginning, I don't think that you're still in a position where you're not getting a little bit of funding. And I believe that comes from creating departments and technology when it suits the company near the end of a quarter. Because then, let's be honest, then the states start looking at it and going, you're a technology company, and they move right back to, we are simply a dispatch company. We are nothing more than a middleman making offers to drivers if they want to take it or not. So, in my opinion, that second definition is correct. They are nothing more than a dispatch company. They get rides, they dispatch them, and they take quite a cut, don't they? And I think those of us that are veteran drivers know this all too well. But relating to the teenage thing, when I was doing the most rideshare driving I was getting a lot of calls to high schools and whatnot. I used to go there, and here in Denver, we've had our share of school problems. I'm sure no matter where in the country you might be listening, you can probably, where I'm coming from on this one. We've had lots of school shootings and things of that nature. So nowadays all of our public schools have police officers at them. But even then they did, the bigger ones. So because I knew I couldn't drive down Colfax and pass Central High School without getting tons of pings, so I'd have to go around it. Instead, if it was getting out and I was near there, I'd just go park right behind the police officer, turn my dash cam out the passenger window, and see how many people I could catch trying to catch rides. And I'd make them cancel, and I'd get my $5. Not much money, but I was trying to make a point. However, I used to see drivers come and pick those people up as well. Now, here's where I have a big problem. Uber knows, even back then, Uber knows that drivers are independent contractors. They are offering you a ride, or they're offering you offers, because it could be Uber Eats, it could be Connect, where you're transporting, delivering items from C to C, consumer to consumer. Or it could be Uber Corner Shop, and you could be doing groceries. I mean, there's a lot of different spaces, but let's be honest. Okay, so here with the kids, so they're letting the kids now have accounts, and I used to try and catch these kids, and the drivers were taking them. Uber was, unless it was really brought up and there was an issue, Uber chose to just stay out of it, because there's 4 phases of an Uber ride: 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0 is you have the app on and you are sitting idle. 2 is you have received a ping and you have accepted it. 3 is you have engaged your car and put it in. You are driving from where you got the ping to pick up the customer. That's 2. And then 3 is you have the customer in the car and you are taking them to the final destination. Now, Uber likes to make this difficult, and they have never allowed any insurance during phase 3 if you have an unaccompanied minor. Now, Now they're going to allow minors, and they're going to tell you that you you can. I've talked to people all over the country. This is already launched. It went live on Monday, May 22nd. If you are a rideshare driver, I would say go into your settings and make sure, because most markets do have it now. If you have Uber Teen, I would turn it off because it would probably be selected as on and be offering you offers. And here's my thing, guys. Uber's kind of claiming that, well, it's Uber Teen and we're allowing it as long as it's under the parent's account. Okay, well, they never had your back before. Okay, and obviously they were saying don't do it. Now they're saying, okay, do it. So look, it's a juggling contest to really even know where they have you insured. But the bottom line here is that phase 3 is so important that you have the insurance from Uber. But let me start off before I get into what I see as the biggest problem with what they've done here. I know Legal Rideshare. I know some other lawyers who represent gig workers around the country. I've interviewed them. And I can tell you that every time you're in question, their answer is talk to your agent or call a different agent, and insurance agent, talk to them. They have issues with Uber Connect. Are you truly bonded if somebody were to have you transporting drugs or something of that nature? It's a sketchy answer, and it would be investigated, and most likely you would be brought into the investigation. But even on a day-to-day basis where, let's say you're in phase 3, you have a passenger, you're taking them to the airport, and let's say something went wrong, not your fault, you popped a tire, you ran into the guardrail, nobody was hurt, but you had a passenger in the car. Uber's supposed to have you covered on that. But every lawyer I've talked to in this space has told me that Uber literally has a checklist to try and knock off any way possible to pay for any portion of any claim. So even on the claims that are very cut and dry, yes, that he should be covered, they still look for a way out. And when they do find one, what they say is you're an independent contractor, things like if you don't have the right insurance, are you guys carrying the right insurance? Have you ever checked with your agent or another agent if you don't want to call yours? Because the price has gone way down. You don't have to carry commercial umbrella insurance anymore. They have gig insurance through most providers, like Allstate, State Farm, Geico, Progressive. They all have ways of covering gig workers for less than the blanket commercial insurance. But if you go to them and you were to say, hey, listen, can I do Uber Connect? I know that a lot of companies, like some of the ones I just named, won't even insure DoorDash. And I get that kind of because there's a lot of carjackings going on. And really, what are you insuring? They don't have passengers. But it's always good to talk to your insurance agent. Now, if you avoid it and you just kind of roll the dice, that's one thing. But if you're going to roll the dice on this minors thing, I highly suggest you please think about it one more time, because the way that Uber handles a situation where an adult is in the car, like I just explained, should tell you that they are going to find any way possible. If you have a minor in the car, they're going to find any way possible to not have your back during any phase of that trip, no matter what they say. And the proof is there, guys. Just look on ridesharerodeo.com. Look back through the last 6+ years of news I've written, and you will see all kinds of stories about Uber not taking care of the drivers, even during times of accidents and whatnot. It's like pulling teeth to get them to do the right thing now. But now they want you to take minors. I guarantee your insurance agent, most insurance agents in this company or in this country at this point have had a run-in with Uber or Lyft. Let's be honest. So they're kind of a little more familiar on how to handle these and how to deal with them and what it takes and how it's a big pain to go through these. So I would question, if you called your agent who's probably dealt with a couple Uber claims and you were to say, hey, listen, I want to take minors, 13 to 17-year-olds who have sub-accounts under their parents. Am I all good doing that with my insurance and I'm under phase 3 for Uber? My guess is most agents would tell you, do not take those rides. Again, Uber is notorious for putting out things, and we just assume that it's okay to do it because it's on the Uber platform. How could it be illegal? They're offering this as a way to make money. Well, again, guys, you are independent contractors. If you are not owning your business and what passengers you are taking, that's on you. That's on you. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being honest. We gotta take responsibilities for the rides we take. And especially now with many places at upfront pricing models, legislation being hammered out, acceptance rating really has no meaning. To me, I'm even surprised it's still in the app. So don't worry about that kind of stuff. Worry about you. Do you. Same as I'm sure Jason has mentioned many times and I mention all the time. Always be aware of your surroundings. If you don't like the way the customer's walking, or it's 2 a.m, the bars are closing and, they're probably drunk. Yeah, there's a good chance they're going to puke in or on your car. So, do you want to just cancel? To me, that's probably the best move, because just cancel and move on, because another driver might come and do the same. Let that person get some air and some water first so that they don't throw up in somebody's car. Listen, Uber is a dispatch company. Don't let them confuse you. Don't let the SaaS, no, we're tech, no, we're middleman, no, we're just this, no, we just dispatch rides. Don't let that confuse you. You are the independent contractor. You have to be in control of you at all times. If you don't like something, cancel it. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about deactivation or this or that or the other, because that's what the gamification on these apps wants you to do. And we just don't want to see you do that. Okay, now, like I was saying right before we got into that, the Minnesota story. So Jason and Jesper ran their podcast, and when they recorded that podcast, Minnesota had come a long way. The Twin Cities were asking for about the same amount as the Seattle area, and the rest of the state was asking for about a little more than the rest of Washington state gets. They had taken out and cleaned up the language from the prior week's bills, and they took out the part that said that Uber had to carry $1 million medical on every passenger, where Uber on the floor 2 weeks ago of the Senate claimed, hey, that insurance doesn't exist in this country. Not only are we're not doing this based on how much it would cost, it doesn't exist. So we cannot operate in your state with that. They literally had to take out words that made it so it was impossible for them to even reach the goals. So they did that. They came back, they revisited it, and it looked like on the last weekend, they went through Sunday night, and on Sunday night, they decided to pass it through. Went back to the House floor, got the pass again, and it was ready. It was law. It was $1.45 a mile and 34 cents a minute in the Twin Cities, St. Paul and in Minneapolis, and a minimum $5 ride. For everywhere else in the state, it was $1.35 a mile, 34 cents a minute, and a minimum $5 a ride. And they took out all the other provisions, except for, I believe, they had left the right to appeal wrongful deactivation as well. But they took out all the trash and the other stuff. One of my questions was, when this had went through, is I'm very surprised that happened, because the cost of living in Seattle compared to the Twin Cities, Seattle's about 3 times more. So, it seemed like if you're going for the same numbers as Seattle, it seemed like you were going for a lot. It wasn't scaled right, correct? You guys see what I'm saying there? Like, maybe they should have asked for less, but I was surprised, went through. I'm sitting there going, okay. But then Governor Walz, for the first time in his career, and he has a very long political career, he's very proud of the fact that he supports House and Senate. If you're not familiar with Minnesota, it's a very left-leaning state. And again, I'm not putting my personal politics out there. I'm just stating a fact. You guys can look it up. It's very left. And he issued his first veto ever on the bill, which shocked a lot of people. He's never vetoed a bill in his career, and this was his first one. And it took everything to kind of get it together and get it through. And people in the industry are shocked. So we'll see what happens there. It's kind of like the same thing that happened here in Colorado when Stephanie Vigil and the Colorado Senate bill, SB 23098, which was a bill that didn't include amounts of money. It just said, we in Colorado, we gig workers have the right to full transparency, meaning just show us everything up front. All the details. Where am I going? Where's the pickup? Where's the drop off? How much is the pay? Don't allow tip baiting. So whatever I see is what I get paid, period. Period. If somebody were to remove a tip, sorry, that screenshot of the upfront pay, that's what I get. And no changing trip, destinations, and any of that. You get it all up front. The other part was that you had the right to challenge a wrongful deactivation. That was supposed to hit our Senate floor here in Colorado for a vote. And the day that it was supposed to hit the floor, 2 Democrats who had pledged their alliance to this bill jumped ship. So, what happened on that too? So, look, I think that a lot of these politicians are in the pockets or vice versa, or however you want to do it. They're in bed together with a lot of these gig apps. We know that. And it's, you guys, all politicians are in bed with companies that we don't want them to be in bed with. But to be honest, that's why there's not a politician out there who's not in bed with somebody, because it sucks. It's like taking the worst. It's like taking the lesser of 2 evils, or the lesser of 5 evils in this case, or whatever, because we have to allow them to saddle up to people, or else they don't have the funding. It's not the system of how we allow funding of political powers in this country has always been a mess. But in this tech age, because I remember when cigarette and big pharma was the deal. Now it's tech and data, and it's being sold off daily. We experience all these crazy things. But in Minnesota, they were ready to pass this, and it was all done. And then all of a sudden, the veto came in, and all along he had been down with this. So, what can I say about this other than we have a lot of other states doing a lot of other things? We talk about that here on the Rideshare Rodeo podcast. So if you're enjoying this today, please come back and join us every week because we'll be talking about lots of this kind of stuff. All right, guys, listen. I want to tell you guys about a new rideshare company. Now, it's only in Atlanta and New York City right now, but it is very different from anything we've seen before. In Atlanta recently, we know that a woman started a all-woman rideshare company. All women drivers, all women passengers, to try and make people feel safer in the Atlanta metro area. Atlanta has been one of the hardest targeted cities when it comes to rideshare and violence, car theft. It doesn't have to be that they killed you or whatnot, just even attacks, whatever. It's just been a hard city for that. New York has too, but there's a new company that is in Atlanta and it is in New York City, and it's about to launch in 3 more cities. I'm very excited to see how this does because, we've seen all kinds of app companies try and come out, especially there's been a lot out of Austin. So it's like we've seen a lot. And, as soon as they try and go bigger than one city, seems like that's when they kind of start falling apart. So what's so different about the app company that I'm about to talk about? Like, what's so different about another app company? Well, the app company is called Black Wolf, and you can find them at blackwolfapp.com. What is Black Wolf? The Black Wolf is a rideshare company where every driver is carries a gun, has a permit, has been trained and vetted. They have to pass all kinds of different licensing and all kinds of different things. It's not Uber and a checker background check. This is the real deal. They're checking. And here's my thing, guys. If you're going, oh my God, every rideshare driver has a gun. I don't know if I like that. I get that. But here's the thing. With this one, every rideshare driver has a gun. So how many customers are probably using these ride shares? Now, are they more expensive? Yes. I've been talking to other people about it, and it looks a lot like, yeah, it'd be great for celebrities. It'd be great for, high profile people and business people in town. But it also is stretching its way into like, we can even do pickups for people, and the drivers get paid phenomenally. So yes, they can pick up kids, and they even mentioned in there that they can pick up, families and just normal people going out too. It just is going to cost more. But the cost for that is for a ride in a very nice vehicle, an Escalade, and your driver is armed and trained. Here's the difference. So Uber, Lyft, for those of us that have been drivers for a long time, for those of us that know this about the TOS, and if you don't, you're about to learn something. We are not allowed to carry weapons. So when you drive for Uber and Lyft, when you click the I agree button, before you can go on the platform and you agree to the terms of service, you agree, even though you're an independent contractor, and it is the state laws that dictate what an independent contractor can or can't do. So if your state allows you to have concealed carry permits and you're an independent contractor, you're allowed to conceal carry. So that's just how it is. Ubers and Lyft and all these other companies are very careful to not put those type of anything on us, because otherwise they get hit about that independent contractorship. Anytime something is stated we can't do it, the states and other agencies love it, because they're like, wait, you can't. What you can't do is tell them what they can and can't do. So they have said we can't carry weapons. But here's the thing. I know a ton of drivers. I talk to drivers all week, every week. And I got to tell you guys, I'm just going to be honest, at least in the rideshare space. I know some in the other spaces too, but I haven't even asked as much in those spaces. But for rideshare, I can say this for certain. More than half of the people I speak with carry a gun, a knife, or mace, or 2 or 3 of the above. So they're carrying weapons anyway. So would you rather be in a Lyft where the guy has a weapon, isn't trained, might know how to use it, might not, but doesn't, hasn't been vetted to how to do it in a situation in a vehicle? Or would you rather give this Black Wolf a try? Like, let's imagine they were the same price for one, because that's a big difference to swallow right there. It probably is a lot more. But let's pretend that they're the same price for one. Would you rather get in a Black Wolf with a driver who has a gun? Or would you rather just keep taking your chances on these Uber Lyfts? My theory is we're not going to see many Black Wolf cars be robbed by the random types that are killing drivers or whatever. You might have a high profile target and you might have 2 drivers and they're both armed and they're taking this guy. Yeah, maybe that makes that more of a target profile thing. But as far as the company itself and just random people getting it, because it costs more, because they're advertising all our drivers have guns, you would be stupid to try and go rob one of those people. So therefore, I believe a lot of the bad will fall over to Uber and Lyft. Now, the price difference also will be a thing. But it's something I'm very interested in. I would love to know how you guys feel. So, you can. And by the way, guys, since this is a different thing than I normally do, you can always email me at steve@ridesharerodeo.com. Or if you have para-related questions, you can always email me as well at steve@withpara.com. All right, guys, it looks like it's time to play Who's the Biggest Loser? That's right. We play this once in a while. It's called Race to the Bottom is the subcontext title. And it's about it's a story. It's a love story. It's a love story about Instacart and a love story about Lyft. And their fast demise as they race to hit zero. But we've seen Instacart make a couple lifts, or no pun intended. We've seen Instacart make a couple gains. They say that their advertising is bringing in this and this, and they're not really being real vocal about their current valuation. But we know both of the companies fell below 10 million. We know that Instacart got to about 8 billion. I'm sorry, fell under 10 billion. And then all of a sudden, because of advertising, they said they were back at 10. They did not want to fall under that 10 number. Now, Lyft, on the other hand, fell below 10. They fell below 5. Right now, Lyft has a current value of $1.75 billion. To put that into perspective, there is a court case being filed in Baltimore against DoorDash. It's a class action lawsuit. Actually, it already is filed for $1 billion. Okay, so let's imagine, because this happens all the time, let's imagine that class action was on Lyft. That means that their lawyers and everything, and to face the fact that they might, or at least in this case, we'll get to that story in a second. I'll make sure to hit on that. But like in this case, DoorDash will probably lose. Now, so if it's $1 billion plus the lawyer costs, like if this was on Lyft right now, this would literally be the end of Lyft. Because if they had to pay $1 billion plus their lawyer fees plus the operational costs and whatnot, their margins would have them at zero, worth nothing, out of business. We'd be done. But Lyft keeps on being resilient. I don't know why it took them so damn long to get the two guys out of their seats and get this new guy in place. I didn't even have much faith in this new guy, but at least he's trying some of the things we've talked about. He's trying some better pay options for DoorDash or for Lyft drivers. I hear it all the time. People who had given up on Lyft are actually enjoying the platform a little now. They're trying to be in Calgary and Edmonton. You know, it's crazy to me because are we ready to see them go back after Canada? I know they were going to go to certain countries and not be maybe like Uber, not be worldwide everywhere, but go to certain countries. And they were already in Canada and that failed. At a time when they are hemorrhaging money, let's be honest, I think hemorrhaging's even understating it, and that's a pretty harsh word. But at a time when they are hemorrhaging money, they're trying to go back after Canada. And it's just weird to me because I don't think it has the value. I don't know. I feel bad because I feel like, I've said this for a long time. Try the Hail Marys, try everything you can, try and pay the drivers across the country $1 a mile and change the rates you're charging customers based on that to make whatever you need to, but give drivers $1 a mile at a time when Uber has cut most of people down to 55 to 60 cents on UberX. Well, Lyft should be giving you $1 a mile. They'd take away all the drivers and try and keep the pricing as conservative as possible. But if it goes higher than Uber, so would the standards of the rides you get on Lyft, which is something they need, a major facelift. So yeah, I would highly recommend, look, if you are on Lyft and Uber and you have not been on Lyft in a while because you got sick of it, it's just, it's been nothing but horror stories the last 9-12 months. I would say get on board now. Maybe it gets bought out by somebody. Maybe they merge. But in case they were to go out of business, I would say get on now because I feel like Lyft is doing things that can make you more money, or at least I would challenge you to try if you haven't tried in a while. Might make you more money in your market than you're used to making on Lyft, and it might even be more than you make doing Uber rideshare. So that said, $1.75 billion. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but considering that the company, when Lyft went live on the NASDAQ, the company was valued at $72 billion. And we are now at their all-time lowest valuation of $1.75 billion. So I think everybody can do the math on that one. They have not done very well, to say the least. So I don't know how often it gets talked about on the Gig Economy podcast, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit here. Waymo. I know that you guys know about autonomous. I know that they hit on it. I watch the show enough. I listen to the podcast that I know that they talk about it. But Waymo has been operating in the Phoenix area. I won't get into the other ones because, in a nutshell, we have only select cities, basically two. Okay, there are a couple others, but let's just talk about the two. San Francisco and Phoenix are the only two places that allow autonomous testing in a live city. Now, Vegas does too, and I was there recently, and I actually tried it out. If you want to go hear that story, I believe it's about 4 or 5 podcasts back. but I had a strange experience with it. However, in Vegas, you have two people up front. You have a driver and you have an engineer. So the experience of true autonomous doesn't exist there. In Phoenix, they have people in the Waymo autonomous vehicles. And in San Francisco, there's a company called Cruise and there's Waymo. And both of those are allowed to operate for 5 hours at night without drivers in them, using a very, very small area that they can do these trips, but still it takes a while in the San Francisco traffic, even at night. Now, if you guys remember, we'll go back a few years to 2017, I believe, when Uber autonomous vehicle killed a pedestrian crossing the street in the Tempe, Arizona area, which, if you're not familiar, Tempe is a suburb of Phoenix or part of the Phoenix metro area. And it's also where the college is. So it's a big college area. But this pedestrian was killed by the vehicle, if you've forgotten or you weren't familiar. And they had a driver up front. Now, there's a lot of things with this story about, was the driver distracted? Was she paying attention to her phone? To which I reply things like, even if she was, why was she allowed a phone up there? She had a command station. But anyway, Uber paid what they paid to the family when the incident happened years ago. But now the driver is on the line for, possible negligent homicide, vehicular homicide. And she was only the safety driver up front, being paid like an hourly rate. This poor woman has been through it there and back. And again, if you're not familiar with the Phoenix area, the county is called Maricopa County. Maricopa County and then down in Tucson, those are the two biggest counties and pretty much the mass of the population of the state. They have had to, this poor woman who was driving the vehicle at the time of the accident, her court case begins in next month, here in June, in like a week, after all these years. And they're having to move her over a county to not, they're saying to, give her a fair trial. Well, but at the same time, right now, today, you can book a Waymo through Uber. Now, if you're not familiar, Waymo and Alphabet, which is Google, are kind of all one and the same. And they had a guy, Anthony Lewandowski, who worked for them in the autonomous department. Well, Uber hired him. And when he quit, he brought all of the autonomous data that was not privy to be shared. It was not his. It was owned by Waymo. They sued him. They got money, but now Uber had this data. Now Uber and Waymo are working together again. This is how weird these companies get. And it's back in the autonomous space. Now, this time Uber isn't claiming Uber autonomous. You are booking a Waymo ride through the Uber app. So it's almost like two middlemen. So they're really trying to make sure that they are not to blame. But I'm very interested to know if any of you listeners or any of my listeners are in the Phoenix area and have taken a ride in one of these or would. I would almost even pay for it if you'd shoot the video for me. So please hit me up, steve@ridesharerodeo.com. Because I would absolutely love that, to be honest. So, but if you have taken a ride in one, please email me if you'd be willing to, and you see it, open the app, make sure you see it in the Uber app, the Waymo option for our autonomous. If you do, let me know. I'd be happy to pay for the ride. So let me know. Okay. And the last story we're going to get to today is the lawsuit that I was kind of referring to. I figured I kind of have to hit on that since we were talking about it. So, in Baltimore, a class action lawsuit has been filed for $1 billion against DoorDash. DoorDash has been accused, and there's a lot of data to support this and none to support the other way. So it's pretty clear data so far. But DoorDash is accused of charging iPhone users more than Android users for identical offers. They also go as far as to say people who have Dash Pass are paying an extra fee which is I can't even remember what they call this thing, the expanded range delivery fee. So specifically, this lawsuit claims that DoorDash misleads and defrauds customers by making its delivery fee seem related to the distance or demand, even though none of it goes to the delivery person, So it also, it's offering an express option that implies faster delivery, but then changing the wording to priority in billing so it is not held to delivery times. Like charging an expanded range delivery, like I was just saying, fee that seems to be based on distance, but is really based on the restaurant's subscription level and demand. Adding an undisclosed 99-cent marketing fee paid by the customer rather than by the restaurant to promote menu items that customers add to their carts. So almost like you're promoting to the people who don't have the Dash Pass and all these. It's crazy. Obscuring minimum order amounts attached to its zero fee Dash Pass memberships and coupon offers, and generally manipulating Dash Pass subscriptions to appear like substantial savings when the company is, quote unquote, engineering fees to seem reduced. Again, this is going on across the board, but we're seeing, and here's the number, you guys, we're seeing 8 to 32% price differences on iPhones than on Androids in all the comparisons they're doing. Does this person have Dash Pass? Yes, on the Android. Yes, on the iPhone. Same location, make the same order. It's going to be 8 to 32% more on the iPhone. But the Dash Pass portion alone also shows that they're charging you $9.99 a month for Dash Pass, but they're finding these other little crazy ways like this marketing fee, 99 cents, and these other things, where they're actually coming up with other fees that you're going to end up having to pay. So it's a very interesting story. It was filed May 5th in the District of Maryland, and the lawsuit is for $1 billion. And it's a class action lawsuit that I don't see DoorDash winning. This one will either get settled out of court or they will lose this money. I mean, they did the crime. They got to do the time, right? That's what I've heard anyway. So you guys, running out of time here. Here's the bottom line. Hope you come back and check out the Rideshare Rodeo. I oftentimes have co-hosts, but sometimes it's just me. I also have a lot of different shows on YouTube that you guys can check out. We do the Rodeo Roundtable on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You can watch all these live, by the way. I do the Last Mile, which is last mile courier services like freight, Amazon Flex, Curry, Dispatch, Drop Off, you name it, Mothership. We can keep going. There's so many of these things, and I can teach you guys a lot. That happens at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. You can join the Last Mile. And then we do a couple other shows too that you can find. But the podcast for Rideshare Rodeo drops every Tuesday. You can find it on all pod players. And guys, make sure to come back and check it out because I do a lot of talking about Dumpling app, Curry app, other apps you guys might not be familiar with, and things that Pairworks has going on. I also will talk about some legislation and other things. But for now, I hope you guys had fun. I hope you guys learned something or two. And I hope to see you guys on more Rideshare Rodeo podcasts. So until then, this is my guest appearance on the Gig Economy podcast. And I want to give it up for my boys, Jason and Jesper. And we'll see you on down the road on the Rideshare Rodeo. Peace.